Good Friday, so happy Easter everybody. I'm sure that this isn't quite the Easter that we all planned on having, but here we are anyway. And as it's Easter, well, don't need Easter as an excuse, but as it's Easter today, I am going to show you how to make my yummy chocolate muffins with sweet potato chocolate frosting. Now, of course, in true style, I have made some already. So these are the muffins. I hope you can see them okay. And I am going to, oh good, there's a light coming up here. Now, hopefully you can see, but sorry, Steve, can you just put the light on behind me as well, please? Right, we'll just put a little bit more light on. The sun's coming in and out here this morning, so I think, no, you can't. Just make sure, I don't know if that helps. Anyway, right, so this is what we're going to make. So I posted the ingredients yesterday, so if you want to cook along, what I'm going to show you today is how to make the cake mix and get that in the oven. And then I'm going to make the sweet potato chocolate frosting and frost the cakes that I have already made. Okay, so I know some people struggle with making cakes without egg, without dairy, without milk. So as I go along, I'm just going to show you the best, share some of my top tips with you on how to get lovely muffins, and you can apply the principles to all cake. Right, so we to start off with, going to create some buttermilk. So this helps with when you sour the milk, when it mixes or when it combines with the raising agents, actually helps create some more bubbles. And it's very, very simple. Here is my milk. Now, just to let you know, I'm actually doing half amounts today because I already made 12 yesterday. And this recipe makes 12, and there's only 2 of us here, so there are only so many chocolate muffins you can work your way through. So if my milk looks less than yours, that's why, because I'm doing half amounts. So to make buttermilk, it works best with soya milk. Now, soya milk has a very similar protein structure to dairy milk and is the best one to use for baking if you can tolerate it or if you have it. Now, I always make sure that I buy organic soya milk and try to get it sourced from Europe, but if it's organic, then you know it won't have been genetically modified. If you can't, then try oat milk. Almond milk or nut milks are very heavy, and so you're not going to get so much of a rise. So to make my buttermilk, I use lemon juice. Some people use cider vinegar, but I don't, partly because it's one of the things I struggle with. So I just stick a little bit of lemon juice in. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but here is my milk. And I'm just going to squeeze in a little bit of lemon. This is a mighty lemon that we got locally. It smells incredible. So this is about 1 teaspoon's worth of lemon. And it's just beginning to thicken and to sour. Can you see at the edges of the jug there? It started to sour. So when that combines with the raising agents, it's going to create more bubbles. So I'm just going to put that to one side. Now, in my bowl here, I've added in my flour and the cocoa powder. Now, flour, I am aware of, is a bit of a challenge at the moment. There's been a lot of shops that are struggling to keep the stores up. So it's a kind of using whatever flour you can get. If you use gluten-free, then use a good gluten-free mix. These work just the same. If you've only got plain flour, then use plain, it's basically what you've got. So we're running a little bit short, so what I've actually got in my bowl is half spelt flour, which I actually had to grind down myself from spelt flakes, and half organic plain white flour because my wholemeal flour is practically run out. So in the recipe, I say use self-raising flour, and then you add in half a teaspoon of extra of baking powder. But because I don't have any any raising agents in mine, I'm actually going to add in some extra baking powder. So So with this recipe, if I'm doing halves, I'd actually only add in 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder if I had self-raising. So I am going to add in 1/2 and a bit. So we're going to pop that in there. Now with baking powder, more is not necessarily a good thing, because your cakes can sink afterwards. So just be mindful how sometimes you get to know your baking powder, basically. So sometimes some are more perky than others. This is quite a good brand, it's quite fresh, and so hopefully it will be fine. Well, I know it's fine because I've already made some. So that's my baking powder, and then the other thing I'm going to pop in here is a tiny little bit of salt. Now, when you're making cakes like this, then you always make your put together your dry ingredients and your wet ingredients, and then you mix them together at the last minute. That's how you get the best raise. Using my whisk again, making sure that everything is combined together. So that's my dry, put that to one side. Smells awesome, lots of chocolate going on. So now for the wet ingredients. Now for this I am using coconut sugar, and I've just realised I haven't got my coconut sugar out, so hold on one sec. Let me just grab this one. So sometimes with these cakes, sometimes with recipes, you'll see that sugar counts as either a dry or a wet ingredient. So don't worry too much, but for today it's going to be counted as a wet. So in here I am going to put just 60 grams, because I'm doing half of coconut sugar. Now the reason I use coconut sugar is the fact that it's slightly less refined than white sugar, so it still retains a little bit of other nutrients as well, but it's also the process of making it is slightly less chemical. It still has the same amount of immediate release glucose as white sugar, but it's so rich and so strong that you use half the amount in the recipes. So it's still sugar at the end of the day, but this is why personally I choose to use it. If you haven't got coconut sugar, then use the darkest brown sugar that you can get, or whatever you've got, because at the end of the day you're making chocolate cupcakes, and particularly at the minute we're just having to use what we can get our hands on. So I've put my sugar in there. Now I'm going to add in my soured buttermilk, and I don't know if you can see without me pouring this everywhere, but this is actually looking quite thick and gloopy now. So I'm going to pour that into the mix there. And I'm going to add some vanilla essence. Just half a teaspoon of that for me. If you're using the full recipe, then you're going to do a whole teaspoon. Always adds a little bit of richness. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some oil. Now, because I follow a particular way of eating as well, so I follow the Overcoming MS program, and oils, we have to be very, very careful with fats and oils. So I use olive oil for baking, particularly for things like this. Even if it's slightly strong, then there's so many other flavours going on that you don't notice it. And once it's in the oven, the actual temperature within the middle of the cakes as it's baking isn't too high to spoil. Other oils you could use, or you could use some organic rapeseed oil, but try to avoid the really highly fined, just called vegetable oil. Yeah, I mean, some people go for coconut oil, but that could be another whole post, but personally do not. So I'm going to use some olive oil, and just to remind me, so in the main recipe it's 80 mils, so I'm just going to put 40 mils. Now I'm in Portugal at the minute, and the olive oil is just incredible, and they grade them according to how strong they are. So for baking, I've used one which has got, it's called Intensidade de Sabor, so just one out of 3, otherwise the flavour will be really, really strong. So in there, so that's all that. So that is done, all is done. And let me just double check. Yes, I have got all the ingredients in. So now we're just going to pop the scales out the way, and I am going to mix these together. So now this is the moment, before you mix your wet and your dry, this is the moment you need to make sure that you've got everything ready. So I've checked, I've got everything in my wet, I've checked, I've got everything in my dry, and then my tin is ready. Now, I've got some muffin liners in here. I've actually had to stick them down into the base because with a tiny bit of oil, because this is such a good quality non-stick muffin tin that the wrappers just kind of fly off everywhere, and then you end up with mix. I also managed to drop cocoa powder all over it before I started, so we've got cocoa everywhere, but it's all ready. So and now this is the key point. So I'm just trying to make sure that you can see there. Yes, you can see the bowl there at the bottom. So this is super quick. Once these two go together, you want to work really rapidly, because the raising agents will start working as soon as the wet hits the dry, and you want them working in the oven, not outside, otherwise you're not going to get a lift. So literally just pour those in there. Now you're working ever so fast, but it's almost like fast but light. So I am moving the spoon across the bottom of the bowl to make sure, and flicking my wrist, but actually just bringing that together ever so quickly, and that is it. So the flour is gone, and then I'm moving this into the wrappers as quickly as possible. So if that seems super quick and your mix is looking a bit lumpy, do not worry, because once it's in the oven, everything will mix together and it won't be lumpy anymore, and then you'll get a lovely rise. So I'm just sending this out. Sending it out? No, I'm not. I'm spreading this out and popping it into the wrappers. Oh, that one's a bit wobbly. Now I'm filling these up because they will rise up, so you will get a nice raise on them, but they might not be quite as puffy as some muffins. If you've got enormous muffins and a big muffin tin, then just try and fill it as much as possible. Right, so there you go. Now there's one other key thing before these go in the oven, and that is to tap it on the worktop. So what that does is it gets the bubbles rising up and ready to bake in the oven. So I'm just nipping to the oven to pop these in, disconnecting so I don't throw it everywhere. 2 ticks. Back again. Right, so my oven, I forgot to say, the oven has been preheated to 180 degrees centigrade, which is 350 Fahrenheit. Right, let's get rid of this. Now the other wonderful thing about making cakes which doesn't have any raw egg or anything like that is that you can happily lick the bowl without worrying about food poisoning. Oh my goodness me, delicious. Right, let's find some space. So what we need to do now is imagine that the muffins have been baked in the oven. They're going to be baked for about 20 minutes. They've come out, they've been raised, and they've cooled, and then now they look like the ones that I have here. So I'm going to make a frosting. There's all sorts of frostings that you can make. You can, if you are vegan, and you can just use dairy-free margarine mixed in with some icing sugar and cocoa powder. That would make a traditional chocolate buttercream. If you can have coconut, you could use coconut cream and make a really rich icing. But the one I'm going to make is one that has got butternut squash. No, it hasn't. It's got sweet potato in it. Now it's not as sweet as normal chocolate frosting, but it is absolutely delicious because you've got the natural sweetness from the sweet potato, We're also going to add in a little bit of maple syrup and some vanilla essence to make it rich. And the structure of the sweet potato actually it creates a structure for the frosting to stay on top, and it doesn't slide everywhere, because otherwise it's a bit of a disaster. And I was so excited when I first managed to create this, because I do miss proper cakes. Again, on the Overcoming MS program, the fat side of things makes frosting a bit challenging. You can make a cashew cream if you can get it thick enough, but it tends to come off the edges. So the sweet potato one is a great solution. So it's quite simple. So I did say in the ingredients yesterday that if you wanted to make this right now, then you needed to cook your sweet potato. So I baked mine in the oven whilst I had the oven on, and I've peeled it. You can also peel it and then steam it. When you bake it in the oven, it tends to have slightly less moisture in it than when you steam it, but both work okay. But what I need to do now is I need to get my food processor over here. So now I usually do this, make this frosting with the pot on my, I've got a stick blender with a pot that goes on the bottom, and I usually make the frosting in that, but I haven't got that here over in Portugal. I do have my trusty Magimix though. So I've popped it in the smaller bowl. And so I'm making the full amount now, because I've got quite a few cakes to frost. So in here, I've already peeled my sweet potato, and I've popped that in there. And now I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. If you haven't got maple syrup, then other syrups will do. I don't tend to use any other ones. I only tend to use maple syrup, or I'll make a homemade date syrup. A lot of the rice syrups and fruit syrups, they're all pretty highly refined and processed, but just use whatever you've got. And so I put in some maple syrup, and now I'm going to put in some cocoa powder. So I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder for now, and then we'll see what happens. And then I'm going to pop in some more vanilla essence as well. I'm running low on this. Vanilla is getting more and more difficult to get your hands on at the minute, even before we were all on lockdown. Right, sorry, ignore the noise. Shall I move this out the way for a minute? So we're going to blend. I might have just put the microphone right by the machine. Right, so just, what's that, 10 seconds blending? And what we have here is a pretty thick mix. Now, this is still a little bit loose, so I'm actually going to add in some more cocoa powder. But before I do, I'm going to do the taste test. Oh, it's tasting good already. It definitely needs some more cocoa powder though. Now, if you've only got cacao powder, then great. You'll get more phytonutrients from the cacao than you will from cocoa powder, just because cocoa powder has been, again, more processed and heated. So sorry about the noise again. We're just going to blend that a tiny bit more. You could do this by hand, but it would just take a little bit more elbow grease. But if you're not going anywhere and you want a bit of exercise, then cooking is always a good way of doing it. So that, as you hopefully can see now, has thickened up slightly. And that is just going to stay on top of the cakes. Rather lovely. So move him out the way. Let's just move you around here a tiny bit. So, and then we're just going to pop it on the cake. Ooh. What is going on there? That's just the base of it. Get a little bit on the top. Yeah. Now, if you've got any raspberries or sun-dried tomatoes, you really don't want that on the top. What I meant to say was freeze-dried raspberries or some sprinkles, whatever, to decorate it, then do so. And that's it. A chocolate muffin with sweet potato chocolate frosting. These will stay, you'll need to keep these in the fridge because of the sweet potato, but they will stay okay in the fridge for a few days, 3 or 4 days. If you want to freeze them, then the cakes freeze really well, and then just defrost them and pop a topping on. Remember, you can always make half amounts. You don't have to make the full amount. If you just got one small sweet potato, then that's all you need to do. And then that is that. I am going to go and make myself a cup of tea and have a cake. I know it's only 11:30 in the morning, but what the hell. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be doing another cooking session next week. I haven't quite decided what it's going to be yet, so if there's something that you have a burning desire to know about or are struggling with, then please let me know. And just to let you know, my online course is going to be starting again very soon. I've popped up a free version, so I'm going to add the link on the Facebook page today. So if you want to have a look over Easter, there's just 3 simple lessons. Have a look at that. And if you've got nothing to do, might help. And also the retreat that we've been doing this week has been incredible. We've had such a wonderful group of people, and there's been so much activity going on. It's been full. You can still access that until, I think it's next Wednesday, the 15th of April. You won't be able to get the lives because we will have finished, but all of the other information will be in there and available for 3 weeks. So if you need some relaxation, you want to find out about different foods, we've got so much going on in there. And we will be doing another one in May as well. So I'll be sharing info about that. Okay, that's it. Wishing you a very, very happy Easter. I will definitely remember that I've got cakes in the oven, and I will see you next week. Bye.